Good morning, everybody. It's right about the top of the hour here, and I'm going to give people just a couple more minutes to log in. I see we've got, well, it says Doug. It's probably Mary. I got Martin. We got Linda. We got Becky and Amin joined us, so everybody's kind of working their way through the original login. So Jesse's on. Just going to give it another minute here. There's people starting to funnel in. So we got Bev joining us. I see I got somebody looking for the link. Okay, let's see if I can get her that. All right, well, we're a couple of minutes in here past the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Sawyer, CPA here with Sawyer and Latimer in Fort Lauderdale. I hope you're all having a good day and you're starting to reopen or be back open. Today, we're going to go over an update on the PPP loans, the forgiveness application, some things we're learning about the EIDL grants that were issued to some folks. And then we're going to go into what the phase one reopening is looking like, and you know, what you can do to do a phase one rebuilding so that you don't really want to miss this opportunity. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there to be had, and you just need to be ready for it. So let's dive right in. So the PPP forgiveness application is out. It came out late Friday evening, I guess I would call it. And again, we're learning a little bit more about the EIDL repayment not being forgiven. And I just like to point out that you know, we expect this stuff to change before applications are actually issued to your bank. So you know, the banks have an option to use the SBA's application, or they can come up with their own application. Today, I've seen an email from Truist, who is the mix of BB&T and SunTrust, that they're aware that they have information that, you know, applicants will need, mainly their SBA loan numbers, which most of us probably don't know, and some other things that they'll be putting together their application and providing those details here shortly. So, but they don't have it out yet, and that was an email that I saw from them today. But again, it's, you know, the original PPP loan application changed 3 or 4 times before you know, they were issuing loans, and then of course the banks all did their own version of it, and I expect the same on this forgiveness application. It should change a number of times, and every bank is going to have a little different spin on what kind of backup information they're going to want, and that kind of thing. So you know, stay tuned. We'll continue to watch those developments as they come through. So there's the link to the forgiveness application. If you really don't want to type all that in, just go to treasury.gov, click the link at the top that talks about COVID resources, and it's listed there along with a bunch of other things, FAQs and various versions of interim final rules and that kind of thing. Yeah, we're watching those developments there, and that's you know, slow to develop there. It's complicated, and there's a lot of stuff. So noteworthy items. It's an 11-page application, which includes the instructions. There's different parts to it. The good news is page 11 is demographic information, and it's optional. So, I guess really we've got a 10-page application, because I don't think anybody's going to fill out that last page. There's some flexibility in the 8-week covered period. So the covered period is the period of you're spending your loan down. So originally they had insisted that it was the date of the loan, and then it kind of morphed into the date you got the money. Now they've come out, and it's detailed on the instructions to the application, what they're calling an alternative payroll covered period, which basically just means that if you got your loan on May 1st, but you're doing biweekly payroll, you can start with your next scheduled biweekly payroll and then go out 8 weeks from there. So a little bit of flexibility there, which is good for depending on the payroll cycle of the client. Maximum compensation to be taken into account is this $15,835, which is the $1,923 a week, which is $100,000, maximum payroll that they're allowing you to consider, divided by 52 weeks. That's where they're going there. So the 15,835 is basically 8 weeks of $100,000 payroll. And if any one person has payroll over that amount, then that amount isn't included, is forgivable. The last kind of dig here at the bottom is buried in an update to one of the various interim final rule documents that are on that website there, is a little thing that says payroll costs excludes owner benefits. It's the first time we've heard anything like this. It was never part of the original application. We used, owner insurance and retirement plan contributions to calculate the original loan amount. Nowhere on the actual application does it ask you to identify those amounts and subtract them, but literally in a bracket on the description of what constitutes benefits for payroll cost, it's just in brackets. It says except owner benefits. So that's something we're going to have to consider as far as what that does to some of the calculations that we have been using based on what we knew up till now. So just be aware of that. And again, it's not really called out on the application, and I'd be interested to see whether the final application or what the banks are starting to ask for will call those numbers out. And it may not be that easy to dig into the accounting system and find those amounts. But anyway, so I'm not going to get super deep into this stuff here, because it's technical and it's kind of complicated to calculate. But generally speaking, your loan forgiveness is potentially in peril if you do not have the same number of full-time equivalent employees as you did prior to this, or you reduce wages. So they've come out with some, on the application here, some more information than we had before on how this is going to work. So they're using a 40-hour to equal one full-time equivalent employee versus the 30 we were assuming before. So that does change some calculations there. There's also an option to use a simpler calculation, which is if it's 40 or more, it's one full-time equivalent employee, and if it's less than 40, you can use a half, and use that instead. And I guess depending on the nature of your workforce and what their hours were, before, the period that you were using to calculate your loan, and during this, covered period of repayment, or use of the PPP funds, you may have some problems here with the number of employees, hours. So they've also included a safe harbor for calculating, which, I think in our original couple of webinars, we talked about, the idea that, from February 15th till April 26th, you could have reduced your payroll. Before the PPP loans were out, when businesses were being shut down, that it was okay to reduce your payroll, but if you got your PPP loans, after that April 26th date, you needed to bring them back. So what this safe harbor says, you can increase your full-time equivalents, back to the February 15th levels before June 30th, if they decrease during that period of 215 to 426. Also, there's a no hit on your full-time equivalent number if you had made good faith offers to reemploy people who declined to come back. And I think we covered that in a prior webinar as well, that they've identified that you may have tried to bring employees back and they just said, no, we're happy staying on unemployment, we're making more money on unemployment, and we won't come back. And I know we've seen clients who have had this problem, bringing people back. And again, our position is document it, and hopefully that won't cause you a problem in the forgiveness. But hey, if you're not paying them the money, the worst case scenario here is you end up repaying some of the PPP loan back to the government. So the second kind of hurdle you have with the forgiveness is wage-based. So if wages decrease by 25% or more for any, and this is per employee, so you have to look, the application asks you to list each employee and their wages, and come to the calculation of whether there's been a 25% or more decrease in their compensation, to determine a salary or hour wage reduction is what they're calling it on the form. But it's between your covered period and the base period, which was the first 3 months of this year. So they've also got a wage safe harbor, which also allows you to restore wages back to what they were by the end of June. So there's a lot of complicated calculations in here relating in very detailed payroll calculations, where you're having to look at various periods and the number of hours that each employee worked and what their wages were during these periods of time. So I would just suggest you get a jump start on particularly looking at some of these base periods and seeing what where you stand. But as I kind of put here at the end, basically if your wages and full-time equivalents have been consistent, then you should be able to get it forgiven, as long as your total payroll cost divided by 75% are more than equal to or more than your PPP loan. So the last kicker there is the less your EIDL advance. So we had originally assumed that EIDL, the original application for the PPP loan asked, have you received an EIDL or an EIDL advance? And at the time we were doing all those applications, the answer to that question was no. A lot of people had applied for these, EIDL amounts, but they had not, nobody had received anything, and really nobody had heard anything from SBA. So we answered no to all that, and we've had a lot of questions about, since, prior to this week on, is that stuff going to be worked in somehow? Do I have to spend it too? And the forgiveness application pretty clearly states at the bottom that they are going to subtract that amount from the forgiveness. So while you don't actually have to pay back the EIDL grant, you kind of sort of do, because they're not going to forgive that much of your EIDL loan. I mean your PPP loan. So I guess those were basically $1,000 per employee with a maximum of 10. So we had a couple people get very low numbers, $1,000, $2,000, because they had 1 or 2 employees. The most we've seen is 10, because no matter how many employees you had, there was a max of 10. So if the way that it's saying this in the application for forgiveness is that amount won't be forgiven. So best case scenario, if you got a PPP loan and this EIDL amount, you're going to be repaying the EIDL amount. And that should be 24-month repayment at 1% interest rate. So not a bad loan, but still very different. I think we've mentioned in prior webinars that the rules as they were originally coming out, the law, the CARES Act that created most of this stuff, what was being said in that and what the Treasury Department and the SBA have actually rolled out are very different. These PPP loans were supposed to be 4% interest 10-year loans, and they somehow became a 24-month loan with 1% interest. So apparently the Treasury and the SBA think they have the authority to make changes to what Congress passed, and whether they do or not, that's what they did. But again, we're to kind of put it at, a end to this topic of PPP here for today. If we expect this stuff to change, we expect more guidance. This is certainly a lot more than we had before. But I can also tell you that just the regular watching of the world news and U.S. news is that Congress is still kicking around the thought of changing some of this stuff. I have a bad feeling it's going to happen after most of us have actually exceeded our 8-week time frame, and then they'll come out with something. Well, you could do this. Well, that's too late. So I wouldn't put it past the government to try to change things after the fact or when it's too late. So and now we really want to kind of move into what does reopening look like? Now, hopefully everybody here has been able to reopen their businesses, or better yet, didn't really have to shut down fully. I know we still have clients that are not open. There seems to be a battle here in Fort Lauderdale versus Broward County on whether you can open up gyms and health clubs and that kind of stuff. The rules keep changing, but generally speaking, we want everybody to kind of think through, what is your plan for reopening? Are your employees ready to come back? Are your customers still around and ready to buy? Do you have any vendor or supply chain problems? and what do you need to change for the new environment? Obviously things have changed a lot. People's thinking about going out and going into stores and a lot of that stuff has changed. Although I will say that it seems to me that there are some people who have a high appetite for some kind of return to normal, and they're excited to get back into restaurants, and they're excited to go back to the gym, and they're excited to go shopping or buy some things for their home because they've been locked up in it for 2 months. But just assessing what's going on in your environment and seeing what what's happening in your world and what you need to do. Obviously you need to comply with new local regulations related to number of people you can have in your business. We're suggesting everybody's got a different feel to this. Some people are still very cautious and very, very, concerned, and other people are not. But go above and beyond and make your customers feel safe, respected, and appreciated. I've heard some examples of some folks who are going into people's homes or into people's businesses where you can show up with your mask and your gloves on and walk in, and people look at you like, well, how long have you been wearing those? Or you can communicate with the client and ask them if it's okay to come into their home, and if they have any restrictions or concerns, and then stand there while they see you sanitize your hands, put new gloves on and a new mask, and you've just showed them the respect, and I think they'll be very appreciative of that level of from you and in your business, and it'll put them at ease and make them a happier customer. Pay attention to trouble spots in your business. Maybe there's a change of staff or circumstances that's exposing these problem areas. We see lack of systems or procedures or training of your employees, your team, can cause a problem when somebody decides not to return, or has decided that they've got childcare problems and they can't come back to work. So now you've got to replace them with somebody else who isn't experienced in that position, and maybe they haven't your business doesn't have those procedures and systems in place in order to quickly get that other person up to speed. So look for those kinds of problem areas and take note of them, because you're going to want to fix those problems and do a better job of working on systems and procedures, so that if you have a loss of an employee in one position, all of their knowledge on how to run that doesn't fall back to the owner. And of course, beware of cash flow. Interesting, ways to watch your cash flow. I mean, obviously, you'll have to see what kind of business is coming in the door and what kind of revenues you're receiving, but be careful on what bills you're paying. If you're behind on stuff, prioritize what has to get paid to keep in business. I've seen some interesting things on with some restaurants. We were out last weekend, and the rather large restaurant we were in was out of a lot of things, and it just became clear to me what they were doing is they were using the inventory they had on hand to bolster their cash position, and they were only buying things they didn't have and needed. So if they had a certain red wine in stock, but they had on their menu that they had 3 red wines, once they're out, they were out, and they were saying, gee, sorry, we're out of that. We have other options on stock that we can give you. And so it's just getting your inventory down by using what you've already bought, and as a way to improve your cash flow. So certainly there's other ways to work on your cash flow. I'm just pointing out that give some thought to what you can do. If you don't need to buy new stock, hold off on it until things are a little better and your cash position's a little stronger, and really give some thought to it, instead of just business is not necessarily normal right now, and we're going to talk about kind of rebuilding, and phase 1 here may not be the right time to get back to normal, and in some businesses there is no normal anymore. Some businesses are going to be out of business, or they're not going to be able to do things anytime soon in the same way they were doing it before. If you had a big salad bar or food bar, or self-serve food service thing, that is going to be gone for a little while. I don't see that. The rules don't allow for it right now, and I think people are concerned, and they're not willing to go to that kind of a thing. So what else is changing, and what do you need to change in your business to adjust to the new environment? What process and procedures need to be altered or developed. and again, we're being into processes and procedures and writing down how we do things and how does, think of it, maybe as some cross training. We've got some, at least in our office, we've got someone now who's out on maternity leave, and we knew, fortunately, we had a little bit of heads up on that, and we did some cross training in advance so that someone else could pick up where her job when she was out. So just things happen, and it's good to have this is how we do things. Speaking of cash flow, we're having a good, strong process and procedure set for sales and collections, and how that works from the time you get a phone call until the time you get paid. What does that look like? Who's in charge of it? Who's got a call? Do you get paid up front? Do you get paid on delivery? Do you give terms? It's okay, you give terms and it's 30 days. Who is calling the people at 30 days that haven't paid you within terms? Who is following up on that? You've got to do that stuff, or else it just doesn't happen, and then you find out you have a problem later. Do you have a detailed action plan for how to make changes that you want to make in your business? And again, we talked in our webinar last week about reimagining your business and really building the business that you want, while there's this shakeup. What we've heard is called the Great Pause. Everybody, kind of shut down for 2 months, and now coming back to a new reality of how business is. So what do you want your business to look like, and what changes do you need to make, and what is your detailed action plan to make that happen? and where will resistance be when you start making changes? We know that there will be resistance. Any change brings resistance, and is it you? As the business owner, is that change, it's in your head. It's you saying, oh, my customers will never go for that. Well, why do you think that? And is there, what else can you do to think through the whole concept of, changing things? And then, does it make sense to get some help to keep you and your team accountable? Accountability is one of the biggest drivers of change, and it's great to decide it, and it's great to have an action plan for it. That improves your results tremendously, but having someone who's keeping you accountable is definitely a very important part of that process. So we're here to help, and anything we can do to help you with that, just let us know. So I wanted to just touch again on value. Businesses generally have 8 key drivers of value, and we find that day-to-day business and life momentum gets in the way of building value in a great business. And that's the old you're too busy working in your business instead of working on your business. You have plans to make some changes, and you get to the office, and the phones are ringing, and the emails are coming in, and the next thing you know, it's 7:30 at night, and nothing happened, and it happens again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So setting aside time to really make plans and to figure out how you're going to implement plans and how to make your business better is really important. And it's probably the biggest issue we see with most businesses is they're just too much in the doing and not enough in the thinking about how they want to change and improve it. So a business owner's focus on these 8 drivers will increase value and increase profits. It'll make things run smoother, and it will also make your business run a lot better when you decide not to be there. It's those systems and those procedures, and making sure you're not at risk of any one customer, vendor, or employee that will allow you to trust that your systems and process will run, and if you decide to take a 2-week vacation, everything will be okay. And being too much in having the owner be the one guy who does everything, and being too much in charge, in other words, not letting your people have procedures to fall back on and know what to do, so they have to come to you for every little thing, it hurts the value of a business. So as I've mentioned in I think in last week's thing, we have a tool that measures your business against the 8 key drivers. It provides a score and then an estimate on the enterprise value of your business. So, not obviously including, it'll ask some basic questions like total revenue and profits and stuff like that, but it won't include, physical assets. So if you own your building, obviously it's not going to include that. We use this tool with our advisory clients to increase the value of their business, and it does more than just increase the end value of an exit plan of the business. It makes the business run better. It makes the business run smoother. It makes the business run far better when the owner is not around, because we've spent a lot of time working on it. So yeah, it increases profit and helps the business become less dependent on the owner. So our kind of offer to you guys on this call here today is we offer the assessment for no cost. It takes about 20 minutes to fill out the online form. You'll get a score and a free detailed report. And of course, like I said, there's no cost or obligation for this. It's just something we want to do for our business clients. We're focusing on businesses and their owners, and it's, our business decision is to work less and less with individual 1040, filing clients, and more with businesses where we can actually add some value and help them grow, which, falls back to the what's good for you is good for us. When our clients grow and expand and are super profitable, it gives us more opportunity to do more for you, and it gives us the opportunity to do some tax planning and those kinds of things that we do when we've got people making a bunch of money. So, and hopefully we can get everybody to that position again for those businesses that have felt the pain of this crisis. And we want to bring value to you guys, and we want to be here when you need us. So I'm going to shift now to questions. So let's see if we've got any questions, and if you got any questions, you can just go ahead and put it in the chat box, and I'll go through them here real quick. Lots of hellos. Can I convert a 1099 employee to a W-2 employee so the amount paid to them can be forgiven by the PPP loan? If so, what I need to contribute to a 401k for them? So the answer is, we do have some people that we've had convert subcontractors into employees to be able to show more full-time equivalent people. Of course, you got to watch the 1923 a week, 100,000 maximum, annualized salary amount. But the quick answer is, if you've got a retirement plan that requires you to cover everybody, then they may need to be covered. If you have a retirement plan that has restrictions, then perhaps not. So really, it's going to have to look at the plan and see what the plan requirements are. Like certain SEPs and simple plans and stuff like that, you can restrict it to having worked for for 2 years or something like that before they become eligible. So it is possible with the plan that you might be able to do that, but I think that's going to be a plan specific question. Is the 100% PPP loan going to be forgiven, or only the 75% payroll? Okay, so quickly, the restrictions are you can only use up to 25% of it for non-payroll costs like rent and utilities. You can use more than 75% of it for payroll. So ultimately what happens on the forgiveness form is it takes your total payroll costs, divides it by 0.75, and if that amount is more than your PPP loan, then it's completely forgiven. So you do get more forgiven than just the payroll cost, but you have to use at least 75% of it for payroll. I paid an employee more than the 1923. What can I do? I guess that's a great question. and my answer is going to depend on whether you can go back and make adjustments to that paycheck, or if that is for more than one period. For the person asking the question, I think I have a way around it. So I will reach out to you individually with that idea. Just because I know what your accounting system is, and that something can probably be changed. It's within your control. It's not it's not a payroll service or the QuickBooks Online, where once it's done, it's really hard to make any changes to. So I think we can make some changes to that. So I will make a note here to give you a shout back on that. Let's see. Any other questions? So this is good. I was trying to keep the length of this stuff a little more reasonable and not go too long. Okay, I got a miscellaneous payment from the Treasury. How much was that for? Would be my question. The EIDL amounts were $1,000 per employee, and they just showed you didn't get an email, you didn't get a letter, it just showed up in your bank account if you applied for it. So if it was so for the person asking that question who had 2 employees during and put that in on that application, then that $2,000 that you got would be that EIDL. So, which if I guess if you don't get the PPP and you don't apply for forgiveness, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with that. I haven't heard that. I hadn't really even thought through that scenario yet. But yeah, so it's the even numbers. Those even 1,000 would be the EIDL. Yeah, I don't know what the G in there is. I'd have to look at it, but it should be I mean, maybe it's EIDL grant that got cut off. I don't know. Is that 75% payroll before or after the EIDL subtraction? So you do the math and determine what your forgivable amount is, and then after you have that forgivable amount, if it's more than your PPP loan, then I guess the entire PPP, more or equal to the total PPP loan, would be forgiven, and then you would still just owe the EIDL back. Could you owe the EIDL and some more? I suppose. I've not really run that scenario, but yeah, I suppose that's possible. And back on the EIDL, yeah, they were calling it a grant, and actually, a lot of people have received emails from the SBA in the last few days that said something like, create your SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan Portal account. And they're using the SBA application number that was originally done when you started that grant. So, and that process changed. Really early on, you would go in and create a loan application to get a full EIDL, which is completely repayable. And required, once the numbers get big enough, it required a lien on your house and that kind of stuff. So we were not suggesting those loans for people. Then they came out and said they do this. Part of that application would be they would issue a quick grant, and whether you continued with the application or not, you would still get this grant. So I think if you got the grant and you didn't get the PPP loan, you just get to keep the money. But the PPP loan specifically now calls out that it's not forgivable as part of the PPP. They're merging the two. So yeah, and I get the grant, the loan thing. So I mean, really the answer is if you got the PPP loan, they're treating it as if it was refinanced in the PPP loan, and then they're not letting that part be forgiven. So I get it. Could they change it? Sure. Would it be nice if they changed it? Yes. Because I mean, I guess as far as if you got to pay $2,000 back at 1% over 24 months, that's not the end of the world. Certainly, it'd be better if it was forgiven. So I think that I think I've covered the questions that we've had. Of course, if anybody's got anything else, please feel free to reach out to us there. We can answer anything kind of past this individually. Again, thank you for attending. We've been doing these now. I guess this is our fourth one. We're trying to bring value to our business clients and keep you up to date on how this stuff is unfolding. And I understand it's painfully unfolding. This stuff is complicated, and it's, as most governmental stuff is, more complicated than it really needs to be. So I would think that we're going to see more information, more guidance from our banks, and more from the SBA in the weeks to come, because they, obviously they have an application, but the banks aren't accepting them for forgiveness. So, once the covered period's over and your 8 weeks is run, the next step is going to be, getting applications in as quickly as possible to make it go away. So, that's the goal. So hopefully the banks will get that out, because as bad as it was getting this money out, it's going to be a lot more complicated getting it forgiven, and that's going to be overwhelming to the banks too. So, anyway, so again, thank you, everybody. Everybody will get I think in about 3 hours after we're done here, everybody can get will get an email with the link to the recording. Also, if you're looking for any of our past webinars, I've got all of them up on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search Sawyer and Latimer CPAs, you will find all those videos there. I have not convinced my teenage daughter that I'm a YouTube star yet, but I've got more videos on YouTube than she does. So maybe someday, I don't know. Anyway, you all have a great day, and thank you for coming.